Bethesda just dropped what is definitely going to be one of the biggest info dumps over the past 6 months of this game, and potentially even longer than that. They revealed a ton about the future of Fallout 76, what's coming over the next few months, what design decision changes they're making with the Atomic Shop, and also a change around the release date of Wastelanders. I'm going to be talking about all of this and more in this video. It's definitely a big one, so I encourage you guys to watch to the end and actually find out all of these details. But otherwise, starting things off, let's talk about what they just announced with the Wastelanders DLC. And that is, well, a delay of the Wastelanders DLC. Back at QuakeCon this summer, we heard that the Wastelanders DLC for Fallout 76 would be coming this November. Although in today's Inside the Vault article, they do say that although Wastelanders is coming together, it's going to need more time to be the best, most polished update it can be. So they're delaying the release of this update until Q1 of 2020. And for those not familiar, Q1 is January, February, or March. So potentially 5 months away, but also potentially just 3 months away. And from there, they basically cite that they want the quality to be there and that they're sorry for the delay, but they feel like it will be worth the wait. So they actually share some details on this, but before we get into that, just my reception to this is mostly positive, but also expected. I think a lot of people in the Fallout 76 community were kind of looking at the logistics of this. Wastelanders has continuously been described as this massive game-changing update, but also to me, it was really one of those things that they had to get right. With the original launch of Fallout 76, as many of you saw, a lot of people weren't happy with the game. It released in a pretty horrible state, and for that reason, a lot of people have passed up on it and really not looked back since. Wastelanders was bringing a lot of those highly desired features, human NPCs, dialogue choices, true questing with choice and consequence. This was, in my eyes, their shot at getting back some of that audience that previously ignored or passed up this game, so it would be essential not to have a buggy release this time around. And also, one of the other things that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about, but is definitely relevant here, Bethesda, like almost all companies, takes a holiday. Last year was around mid-December, with a return around mid-January or the second week of January. Logistically, it'd be kind of hard to get all of the Wastelanders content out, make sure everything's working perfectly, and then disappear for 2, 3, even 4 weeks. That seemed like a tall order, and they obviously don't want a repeat of last year where a ton of issues persisted over that time, like duping exploits becoming widespread while Bethesda was away. With that in mind, it really to me makes a lot of sense for them to do this delay. I'm not personally unhappy with it. Hopefully we see it earlier in 2020, like maybe an early February release seems like a nice date. This also is something I kind of expected. I didn't think they would do it quite so late. We're only 2 weeks away from November when it was the reported release date of this, but with the size and scale of this update, it just didn't seem like they would have the time to actually finish it in time for this year. So all around, I would say, although disappointing in the short term, in the long term, this should be positive news. It gives Wastelanders a little bit more potential to be truly great and a real revival of this game. It also is worth mentioning, this is actually the second major delay from Bethesda this year. We just recently heard that Doom Eternal is also getting delayed until next year, so hopefully this does reflect a company-wide recognition that releasing buggy games is pretty bad and could lead to a lot of bad press and a lot of people just never playing your game. While delayed game or expansion, although unfortunate to come out a bit later, is probably going to be much better well received and hopefully sell better, assuming all of the appropriate fixes were in place by the time of release. And speaking of, again, they actually do share some details around this. They mention how this is actually turning out to be one of the largest expansions they've ever done, even outside of Fallout 76, or at least the wording makes it seem like that's the case. They say that they'll be sharing more details over time, and they don't explicitly say much here, but we get several screenshots. One of the first things we see is somebody with a Vault 76 uniform almost being escorted, or it looks like they're being escorted by 2 figures. It looks like this one figure is definitely wearing some kind of new armor. So initially I thought that these 2 figures were actually holding this person prisoner. I think that person in the Vault 76 uniform is going to be the Vault 76 overseer. She's kind of the guiding force throughout much of the main story, but at the end of the story, you don't actually know what happens to her. At the start of the Wastelanders trailer, you could actually hear her voice hinting at a return. And again, initially, I actually thought she was taken prisoner here, just based off how they're walking, but the name of this image, as it's actually uploaded by Bethesda, is WL Leader. So perhaps this is a nod to the fact that the Vault 76 Overseer is the leader of a faction, like the Settler faction that we know is coming. Then we do have WL Duchess. What I think this is going to be a bar or tavern. In one of the QuakeCon interviews, it was described how not too far from Vault 76, a NPC-controlled tavern would be located. I'm guessing this is that tavern and Duchess is the bartender slash owner. And well, this woman is Duchess. The shirt she's wearing in this is also the name of one of the beers in Fallout 76, so it all does fit together. This is the crashed space station. This is actually the base of the Raider faction that will be coming with this DLC. We've seen this in the past. It's another look at it. It definitely looks really cool, like it will be an interesting location, but I don't see too much being revealed from this. I actually really like how some of the machinery is added here to kind of facilitate the idea that this genuinely was renovated. Then we also do see an interaction between what looks like the Raiders, as they are wearing that iconic tire armor, and the settler we were introduced to previously in the trailer. This is the guy we have the dialogue choices with. The title of this one is Meg, so I'm guessing this woman who's talking to the guy we saw previously's name is Meg, and she's probably some representative or perhaps even the leader of the Raider faction. So maybe they're in some kind of negotiation or something along those lines. I can't totally identify where they're located. It does look like some kind of new or different location. It definitely doesn't look like this is at the crashed space station, which we just saw. And then finally, we get another look at the Wendigo Colossus that is coming with this DLC. We saw some gameplay of this one in the past, and it definitely looks like it's going to be pretty terrifying. We can also see some other Wendigos around this, but one looks totally new. This one almost looks like it doesn't have a head. That looks like some kind of new Wendigo being introduced also with the Wendigo Colossus, but there's not much else we can infer from it. This other one at first glance looks like the typical Wendigo in Fallout 76, but it actually doesn't have that iconic hair. The Wendigos in Fallout 76 pretty much always have that kind of dead looking hair on its head, and this one doesn't. Maybe it's just a model change or even some kind of glitch or rendering issue, but this also might be some other kind of new variant that we haven't heard about yet, although obviously looking very similar to the existing one. So all in all, an understandable, and for me at least, I think somewhat of an expected change or update to Fallout 76's future. I imagine a lot of people will be upset or kind of disappointed now because this was just around the corner. We were only a couple of weeks away. Although fortunately, we do have things like the Outer Worlds coming out, Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC, as well as some new content is coming out. And also, there are other things coming to Fallout 76. With this, Bethesda also announced officially private worlds are on the way. We heard about these back at QuakeCon. All we really got was they'll be coming sooner than we think, and actually it's coming next week. They described this as the ability to play in your own private world with your friends has been the #1 community requested feature, and in effect it's going to be a purchasable service. They don't give any concrete details on pricing or even server size technically. By default, Fallout 76 servers hold 24 players, so I'd have to assume we'll get that here too. They mentioned in the coming days we'll hear additional information on this service, and I definitely will keep you guys up to date when we do hear about that. But otherwise, yeah, a private world that you can buy and then play with just whoever you want is coming. And they also do mention, although nothing concrete, in the future, you'll be able to mod your worlds. The way that's kind of just thrown on there and not like widely announced, because that would be a massive feature, official mod support in Fallout 76, makes me think it's not coming this year. Probably coming at some point in 2020, likely after Wastelanders. I think this is actually great news. Private worlds are something I've been hoping for a long time, and it'll be interesting to see what people do with these. Obviously, roleplay servers will pop up. Even further, I'm going to definitely be purchasing one of these servers, doing a live stream and inviting a ton of people, like all 24 players doing one thing at the same time. Just seems like it could be pretty cool. It'll be interesting to see if we could actually change or modify any of the server rules, so we could actually have some kind of custom experience on those servers, similar to other games like Battlefield. But also, hypothetically, this is an easy way to avoid server instability. Buy one of these servers, add whoever you want on it, but keep it to just a handful of people, and hopefully it should be pretty stable, at least hypothetically. I saw some people mentioning they were surprised this would actually cost money. I honestly don't think that's that crazy. It'll be very interesting to see what the pricing is around these. Obviously, a lot of the stuff for Fallout 76 has been a bit overpriced, and I'll be curious to see if the servers are also priced quite highly. Either way, unless it's $500 per month, I will in all likelihood be buying one and definitely do some live streams playing around with all of you. But also, this does seem to confirm the long-held suspicion that if you were going to mod Fallout 76 when that is available, you can't just do it for free technically. We've known for a while that mods were only supposed to be applicable on private servers, and since private servers will cost money, if I want to install my own set of mods, I'll need a private server. I guess that's technically not fully confirmed because we don't even know how mods will work exactly in this game, but it seems in all likelihood that is how that will work. Also, hypothetically though, you can connect to, let's say, my private server and download whatever mods I have on it, I assume, but if you just wanted to play play by yourself and mess around with some mods, it'll probably cost money. I don't think there'll be a free way to do that. And that, of course, if it does end up being true, will be a major barrier to entry, not just for the mod users, but even for the mod authors. Maybe there'll be some kind of program to give free servers to people creating mods, but that definitely will be an interesting discussion when mods eventually get added to this game, assuming they ever do. And then we have the part of this that's definitely going to upset some people. So one of the last big announcements from Bethesda is actually around the Atomic Shop and atoms in general, that being the microtransaction currency. Bethesda does say how their approach to the Atomic Shop at launch was to keep things purely cosmetic, but after looking at all the data, it became clear that to consistently deliver content that keeps Fallout 76 fresh and exciting for all, we needed to rethink our approach to the Atomic Shop. Okay, so I literally have done like 3 takes on this part and I can't get through it without laughing. Bethesda goes on to say that they want to change the Atomic Shop as a direct result of the community's feedback, and that they've heard from so many of us that we wanted items with some real utility. So then they describe how as a result of that feedback, they started adding in things like repair kits, scrap kits, the Collectron Station, and a working refrigerator, and that these paid for utility items have become the most popular category in the Atomic Shop. So in essence, what it seems like they're describing here is that since so many people seem to love utility items, they're going to do more of it. This is their version of implementing community feedback. They mentioned that we're still working on all the previously announced items and new cosmetic categories. When they say previously announced items, what I think they actually mean is, well, if you scroll all the way back to when repair kits were initially announced, at the bottom of this, Bethesda was describing how with this new utility item category, they wanted to bring a lot of community-driven ideas into the game. And we've seen almost all of these, things like refrigerators, the ability to send scrap to your stash, but also the ones we don't have are ammo and food converters. So likely the ability to take my 5.56 round, convert it into a raw resource, and then actually turn it into a separate and new type of ammo, and likely a similar system for food. So it seems like they'll be adding this into the game with a future update, and just based on the wording overall, expanding the presence of this utility section of the Atomic Shop in general. This because they want to make it more fair and based off community reactions, since these are so popular. They also mentioned to go along with this, they're going to be reworking the challenge and reward system, that in hopes of it being clearer, more fun, and more impactful for all types of players. I don't really know what they mean by this. There's actually a lot of people that will follow the game or keep logging in just to complete those weekly challenges. These tend to give you atoms, a relatively small amount, but you'll get some atoms by completing some stuff for free in-game. Do they mean they're gonna not give you atoms, or they're gonna make it so some give you atoms and some don't? We saw that change to the game already. A lot of the early game challenges were actually reworked. They originally gave you atoms, but now they give you things like stim packs or food. Bethesda described how at the early game, having some of those useful items is a lot better than getting the atoms. So is this following a similar route? You'll get more in-game items rather than atoms? Honestly, I don't know. I don't think it's totally clear from the wording here either what kind of changes we can expect. And despite Bethesda basically describing they're going to expand the utility add-ons a little bit, they do say that they want to keep things fair and not upset the game's balance. That their main objective is to avoid a situation where players can spend money to gain a competitive advantage, or make the game worse for other players. But also, they actually want a system where they could actually have players buy atoms and make the game better for others, not just themselves. So I don't really get this. Who has at any point asked for non-cosmetic microtransactions? I feel like with all of these non-cosmetic microtransaction releases, it's only been backlash. Like, you have some people saying it's not that big of a deal, it's not game breaking. You have some people saying it is game breaking, but I really haven't seen anyone be like, oh yeah, I'm really happy they added this in. I kind of said this a while ago in some of my videos as we started seeing some of these new releases and people weren't super upset. I thought Bethesda would expand the system. They did end up expanding the system, and it seems like in 2020 and perhaps even through the end of 2019 we'll see it expanded further. And frankly, I don't really find this all that surprising. If what Bethesda is saying here is true, that this is the most popular category, it does make sense to expand it. I don't agree with it, I wish they weren't. I like the idea of the Atomic Shop being cosmetic only, but to me it seems more like one of those things where they got their feet wet with repair kits and scrap kits. Especially with repair kits, they were pretty careful with them. They added in a free alternative that was better, or before you could purchase this version, they realized, hey, people aren't really freaking out. People are still playing our game, and in fact, people are buying these items. So then they expanded to other things like the refrigerator, which also seemed to be selling pretty well, and in my eyes, they'll probably continue on to some larger or more encompassing things that are perhaps a little bit more useful to incentivize you more to actually purchase them. If they do add something in like ammo converting, that would be kind of a big deal. That's a feature that otherwise you don't have access to, which is unique. For almost all of the other things, it was kind of inconsequential, not a hugely requested item, but ammo conversion or ammo scrapping or selling is widely requested. In Fallout 76, if you go to a vendor, you actually can't sell your bullets. You can sell them to other players, but otherwise that's really your only option outside of just using or dropping them. Although outside of that, Bethesda also does share details as to what will go on for the rest of 2019, and it seems like we may still have some updates and other content on the way. The next patch for the game is coming on Wednesday, October 23rd. That's going to be patch 14. We don't know too many details about what exactly is actually coming with this. It also is likely the release date of those private servers, but otherwise they do describe more fixes to the existing game, quality of life improvements. They describe how now that Wastelanders has been delayed, they're hoping they could actually implement a lot more fixes this year, but also other things like some new events. We know the Halloween event is just right around the corner, the legendary player system, a public test server, perk loadouts, and so much more. So it's not totally clear as far as a release date on the public test server, perk loadouts, or the legendary player system. Some of that stuff was promised to launch with Wastelanders, other parts were promised for 2020, but now that we see a release date delay of Wastelanders, this could perhaps confirm some of it gets moved up, that does get implemented this year. But I think if you actually look at the calendar, there's going to be some serious issues with player count going into the end of this year. I think a lot of people were playing right now and kind of holding on for Wastelanders, just hypothetically a couple of weeks away. Even though overall, especially for the long term of this game, I think the delay is a really good decision. There's really just not a lot of incentive to continue playing. There's not a lot of stuff going on right now. I would say player count kind of felt like it was already at an all-time low, but now going forward, it's going to probably drop off a lot more. All those people holding out or waiting for Wastelanders will probably now move on. A lot of other really big game releases, Red Dead Redemption 2 on PC, as well as the Outer Worlds. In 2019 thus far, there hasn't been a ton, at least recently, for players that like PvE content. The vault raids were a bit of a failure due to the lag or instability issues. The Battle Royale mode is not PvE, it's PvP. And then all the other kind of good stuff, or the highly regarded stuff, was back in early 2019 in the first and second quarter. One of the other things that kind of strikes me about this is it almost feels like the Battle Royale mode has to some degree been abandoned. Since its launch almost 4 months ago now, we saw 2 new pieces of new content, and there's no newly announced content on the way. So overall, a very interesting announcement or set of announcements from Bethesda. Going through that article was really a roller coaster of emotions for me. Either way, next week is going to be a big one for this channel. Private servers for 76, as well as the Outer Worlds release. But also, starting today in Fallout 76, there's actually going to be a sale on legendary items from the legendary vendor. 50% off is actually a pretty big deal. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a ton to do with those weapons in the short term outside of the existing stuff, but if you're looking to farm up or buy some new weapons, now would be the time to do so. Either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. As always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.